Coming to you live from my apartment, it's Rob Has a Podcast, and now here's the guy who has no idea how to make a screaming baby stop crying, Rob Cesternino. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of our Big Brother Canada podcast. We're getting very close to about 10 days away from the Big Brother Canada 2014 finale, and we've got a great show for you guys here today. First off, let me introduce you to my right-hand man who's been watching these feeds all season long. Here he is, Mr. Brian Lynch. Brian, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm great. Very excited to be here, Rob.
Very exciting because we have a great show today, and here he is. He was the last person besides a stork to spend any time with these final 5 Big Brother contestants. Here he is from Big Brother Canada 2. Here is Kenny Brain.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Kenny, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Doing great.
Yeah.
How are you?
Very good, Kenny. The background behind you is very, very impressive.
Thank you. It's
Yes.
not mine.
Yes, he has like a nice brick wall behind him if you're listening in the audio. So very, very good. And Kenny, very excited to have you here. This is going to be a very fun show. We want to really get into it, figure out what is going on here with these final 5 and who you think is going to walk away with it and how different you feel about these 5 people from the time that you last saw them in the house now after you've seen so much of the episode. So this is going to be live. We're going to take a lot of your questions here with Kenny. We've got the chat room going on robhasawebsite.com. We've got the hashtag RHAP happening on Twitter, and then you can also post your comments on our YouTube channel at robhasawebsite.com/YouTube. Okay, Kenny, how has it been to get back to real life so far?
It's bittersweet. I mean, when I first came out, it was anyways. I didn't want to leave the house because obviously I went there to win and compete for, the #1 spot. But once you leave and you get to see your family, which you've kind of been missing and wanting to see for so long, it's good. It's nice to kind of get back into a routine and sleep when you want and, do what you want when you want. So it's pretty good.
Okay. And have you been keeping up with all of your friends that are also out of the house? Have you seen Mumsy and Andrew?
Yeah, well, right after the show, I actually went to Calgary to pick up my dog. So I got to go out with Andrew a few times. So we partied a bit. That was excessive. And then I got when I came home. I mean, I talked to Mumsy pretty much every single day. We FaceTime last night. I FaceTime with her kids and stuff. So I've been keeping up with most of them. I talked to Nick a bit too. I apologize to Kyle for being an asshole in my goodbye speech, but other than that, that's about it.
All right. Well, now, how surprised have you been with how things turned out? Because for basically the first month of the show, the first 5 really ran the roost, and basically all of these people that were on the outside, these sloppy seconds, have really come together, with the exception of Sabrina, who somehow amazingly is still there. How much does that blow your mind?
That Sabrina's still here? Or that
that it's these sloppy seconds that are here in the final 5 instead of the first 5.
Well, it doesn't blow my mind that much because I mean we had 5 that was a very strong, huge alliance in the house. So there was many other people in the house that weren't a part of that alliance. So once it actually kind of came to the forefront of the game and our target kind of blew up, all it was common sense for them to band together to get rid of us. So really, it was a smart strategy to kind of lay low for the first half of the game and explode for the second half. So I'm not that surprised. I, obviously wish it was me instead of them, but not that surprised.
Now, who are you rooting for here in the final 5? Are you rooting for Sabrina, who was in the first 5 with you, or are you rooting for John because that you guys are both from Newfoundland?
It's kind of a little bit of both now, because I mean, Sabrina wasn't in my alliance. She may be a lot of things, emotionally high-strung and a bit wacky at times, whatever, but I mean, she was very loyal and a very valuable member of our alliance at the time. So now I kind of find myself rooting for her just because she's the underdog, and you know what? She doesn't have anybody in the house, so I find I'm kind of cheering for her. Do I want to see her win it overall? Probably not. There are some other people in the house that I think played the game better than her up until now, and I think John is one of them for sure. So if between everybody in the house, I think Netta and John would be the people I'm going for.
Is there anybody that you're not rooting for?
Oh, I'm gonna get so much flack for this again, but Heather. I mean, I don't think she's doing that much, and I get so much grief from people who are like, she's done this and she's done this. Yes, she's made smart moves, she's made strategic moves, but I was in the house with her from day one, and I don't think that she's done enough to win the game. So I don't think she will.
Yeah, she has certainly turned on the challenge competitiveness of late, and I guess that speaks for something. But she has not really been somebody who's been wheeling and dealing as much in the second half of the game as some of the other players have.
Exactly.
Yeah. What's your take on Adele? That he was somebody who the first 5 had, he was right there with Paul and Kyle, and somehow he escaped eviction then in the first couple of weeks, and then he has, pretty much through most of the game now been able to avoid being a target. Are you impressed with his turnaround in the game?
Absolutely.
At this point?
I call. Yeah. Well, at this point, yeah. I said that very earlier on, like right before Aika was leaving. Actually, I was like, look what he's done so far. He's dangerous. I mean, he was basically on this a part of a massive sinking ship that was Paul, Kyle, and himself for a very long time. But as they started going down, he became kind of this uplifting, positive, respectful guy that was doing it because they had nobody else. And then Aika, he didn't even like Aika the first weeks. They weren't friends at all. And then all of a sudden, they're, tight as anything. And relationships do form very fast in the house. I know that, but I mean, he attached himself to sinking ships, therefore reducing the target on his back while there was a bigger one going down. So that once you jump around from so many targets, you kind of get lost in the mesh of it. So he's done a good job. He's definitely done a good job.
Can you talk a little bit about Netta, who has really sort of emerged in a lot of people's eyes as somebody who's been a real mastermind this season, and somebody who early on was not probably thought of in the house as somebody who was much of a threat in the game? Did you have any idea at the time, how involved Netta was going to be in all this planning down the stretch?
The very first week, when you're kind of getting first impressions of everybody, it was I said. They asked me about Netta, and I said, I'm not sure about her. She watches, she listens, she doesn't say much, she takes a lot in without giving a lot back. And that kind of with Arley, what he was doing with our alliance, that kind of sent red flags up with me. But it kind of just became who Netta was, and I guess that's kind of her way of playing the game, because I completely almost forgot about her. She just kind of became John's coattails. You looked at John, but Netta was right behind there, maybe steering the wheel a little bit, but riding coattails for the most part, which is how she got to the second half when she exploded. So I never really expected her to be this strategic.
In this past episode, she cited the point in the game that she was on the ropes up until was the point that she beat you in that HOH competition during the double eviction in the game. Did you feel like that was about right? Was that the point where things really changed for her?
Not necessarily. I think she kind of she came. Well, yeah, actually, that was probably the week that she really kind of came out of her shell and started being kind of this mastermind, big dog. Because she knew that, like, if I had stayed in the house and I got HOH, I would have went after her. I was recognizing that her and John were basically the top 2 that you need to get out of the house. So by her getting me out, she did really clear a path for herself. So, yeah, for sure.
Let's talk about Arley a little bit, because he was somebody who was very instrumental in sort of the dismantling of the first 5, and probably, he was the guy who was really working with everybody and got the ball rolling with the sloppy seconds with John and everybody else that was part of that. And then so quickly after getting the first 5 out of the house, then he becomes the first person on the jury. Did that make you happy to see Arley go out so quickly after you guys?
Absolutely. I mean, you can see in all of my evictions interviews, I said I think Arley's going to win, because He is a very intelligent player. I don't think he would have flipped if Canada wasn't HOH and they would never weaken the first 5 because we would have had the numbers and we would have had the power. So I don't think he necessarily would have switched at that point, anyways. But seeing him leave was nice. It was nice. He came out too quick. I mean, he was all of a sudden this whole game like under the radar, playing both sides. This I don't say anything, I don't do anything, I'm diplomatic. And then all of a sudden he exposes himself by flipping as this big player. And we already know that the first 5 were all classified as big players, and they all kind of went home. And then right after I go home, he exposes himself as a big player. That's basically just saying, okay, vote me out next, because he's just shown that he will do literally anything to win this game, and he's a very smart guy. So he kind of did it to himself.
Yeah, in hindsight, I felt like, Arley was a really good player, but really, in hindsight, I think he probably would have gone a lot farther had he not turned on the first 5, because nobody was worried about him when the first 5 was around. Brian, is that fair? Do you think do you agree with that?
Definitely, but the catalyst was Canada being HOH and wanting to split the first 5 up. That's why I flipped.
Yeah. Was there any chance that after Andrew went out that the first 5 could have been patched up back together?
I don't think so. I mean, I feel like there was so much just hate on towards the first 5 in the house because we were considered like these tyrants in the house, kind of. Because we kind of were just steamrolling, and once it kind of became outed by Canada that 2 of these members, they wanted them gone. It was almost like reassurance. They're like, if Canada wants them gone, then we definitely need to get them gone too, because I approached multiple people afterwards realizing that, this might not work. I approached John, I approached Netta, but I think the damage was done at that point. It was kind of irreparable.
Now, then Allison, very quickly, she goes out after Arley, and she votes to evict Arley with the Gremlins. And so she ends up feeling like that was a big mistake. Did you think that Allison should have kept Arley around?
Absolutely. Arley is the only one in the house who had the willpower and the ability, I think, to go after strategically and smartly Netta and John. And they basically just kissed that goodbye as soon as they voted him out of the house. And now they just got systematically destroyed afterwards. So it was such a huge mistake by getting rid of Arley.
All right, Brian, let's catch us up to speed on the spoilers, because I want to talk about where we are now at this point in the game. So not a ton of stuff from the Sunday night episode that matters after the veto competition. So I'm going to buzz for spoilers, okay? We're talking spoilers now, Kenny. All right, okay. Here we go. Brian, tell us where we are right now.
Okay, so Heather won the veto and removed herself from the block, and John nominated Adele in her place.
Okay. All right, so now Adele and Sabrina are on the block, and Netta and Heather will vote. And Brian, how is the vote looking at this point?
They're saying that they're going to take their time, but as of right now, they would vote out Adele and keep Sabrina, I believe. However, John recently has been pushing that, he wants to keep Adele because it's better for him to keep Adele.
And do you does Adele have any sense that he is in danger here?
Yes, he believes he's in danger. He thinks he's going to have to pull out all the stops. He's even got a plan for a last-second Hail Mary, like a post-rehearsal plan for Thursday, in which he basically threatens Netta with tainting the jury against her and being a bitter juror.
Okay. And how do you know that? He says it out loud? He talks in the third person?
No, he was talking directly to live feeders.
Okay.
Using those words exactly.
All right. All right,
he
so
is
Kenny,
vowing to be a bitter juror.
What is the move here if you are in the position of John or Netta, and maybe it's not necessarily the same move for both of those two?
Well, John made a decent move in putting Adele up, because the chances of Adele if winning once he gets to the end are pretty high, because I mean like you said, he's had a crazy story. He's been kind of on the down and outs from the beginning, and now he's up at the top, and I mean, he's buzzworthy. He's got Canada's vote, so he could make a great case for himself. But John should have put Netta up 100%. Netta's already plotting against John. One person wins, and if he looks at everything right now, Netta is probably the most strategic and strong player there, and they might be great match right now, but it's down to the point where it's an individual game, so he should have put Netta up. And in Netta's place, it's kind of the same thing. She should have put John up or Adele kind of thing, because that's her biggest, challenge in the house.
Do you think, is it a week too early for that? Because if John puts Netta up, and then let's say then I guess whoever he goes up in the place, I guess it would be Sabrina versus Netta. Then Adele and Heather get to control the vote. And okay, so let's say they vote out Netta there. Now John can't play HOH next week because he's the HOH this week. He's basically going to have to put all his eggs in their basket that they keep him safe. And it's like, why wouldn't you put John on the block next week?
I feel like Adele would probably, and even Heather would probably keep John. I don't think that they'd get rid of him actually right off the bat, because if nothing else, Adele kind of is this loyal person. Once he does attach himself to this person, he kind of does. He does pretty much do only positive things for that person. So I feel like Netta is, because she's going to be able to play for HOH next week, and I guarantee you 100% she's probably going to put John up.
Oh boy. Brian,
Yeah.
Is that how you see it too? You think Netta will put John up this next week?
Oh no, because the only thing that really matters is the veto, and I think John has a really good chance of winning that veto actually with Adele gone.
Yeah, it's tough because it's like, when do you make the move here? Because we know Netta is thinking really hard about, I don't want to go to the end with John, but then she's also, I don't want to go to the end with Heather because she's playing really hard now. So it's, do you make the move at 5? Do you make the move at 4? Or do you make the move at 3? That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of think you need to be proactive in this sense. He didn't make a bad choice. If he's going to put up anyone that isn't Netta, he should put up Adele, like 100%. But I do think he should have been a bit more proactive, even though it may seem a little early. But he's not going to be in power next week, and Netta's already talked about she's going to have to separate very, very soon. And I think that there's a good possibility that she will do it. But you are right, Brian. Like, John is kind of a beast lately in challenges, and he probably has a pretty good chance of getting the veto, so you could be right.
Okay, let's take some questions here with Kenny. I know a lot of you guys are going to have a lot of questions for Kenny as we go along. So here we go. Let's start with Emily Stops. Question for Kenny. If you were in the same position as Aika, when she was given the choice to shred the letters or take $5,000 check, which would you choose? Now, I know you were very upset with Aika back then, that a lot of people were. Would you have given everybody the letters or given the money?
If I was in Aika's position, I 100% would have took the money. She made the smart, strategic choice in her position to take the money. I know I reacted very strongly to it, but it wasn't the move that she made, but how she made it, basically. Like, kicking and shredding someone's loved one's letter, it seems just vindictive, and you just got $5,000, and you made the right choice. Shred the letters, end it, and move on. Now, it made for great TV, and when you're in the kind of that universe, it seems like the be-all, end-all. I may have overreacted a little bit, maybe, but she definitely made the right choice. I would have done the same thing.
Yeah, that was one of the most fun moments of the season, I really felt like, because yeah, very
falling like a baby.
Yes. Okay. So let's go to our next question from Edward Giordano. As a fan of the Gremlins, what is the best possible final 2 situation for Sabrina to be in? Okay, Sabrina's going to get to the end. What does she need to do to potentially get a win?
Well, Sabrina's she's got the gift of gab. She's very good with words. I mean, look how persuasive and manipulative she was for the first 5 weeks of the show. We sent her in as a soldier. She went into each HOH because we were a target from day one. And she went into each HOH, she changed their minds, and kept us off the block. So she's very good with words. So basically, all she needs to do, if she does get to the end, well, see, I'm not sure if any jury members will be able to listen to her anyways and give her the prize, but if she does get to the end, I think her best bet would be to go against someone like Heather, because I don't feel like she's done too much in the game. Actually, Sabrina's done more, to tell you the truth. And she's a better speaker. She can piece together a better piece. And I think that if she does get to the end, she should place herself next to Heather, and she would win.
Yeah, I don't think that Sabrina has a terrible argument either if she gets to the end. I mean, she's really, not too much unlike Andy, I feel like, in the Big Brother 15, where she could say that, look, she was playing both sides at different points in the game, and she worked really hard, and she did more probably for her alliance than Heather ever did for her alliance during the game. Heather didn't piss people off like Sabrina did, but Sabrina, you can't say she didn't work hard this season.
She worked like a dog. I mean, and she was very loyal to the first five too. She did a lot of big moves while she was in power. Now, once the kind of power started switching, she did fall to pieces a little bit. But I mean, she's still there. She's still standing after everything is said and done. The first five is dismantled, and there's other players going besides the first five, and she's still there. So whether she's being carried along as kind of a cushion to win, basically put yourself next to Sabrina and you will win. But I feel like if you do that, depending on how you present your case, Sabrina may pull a win out of her sleeve because she has done some big moves.
Brian, is it possible? Can Sabrina win this game?
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible, but I would agree with Kenny. I think she would need to be up against Heather. I think what she would need is just to go against the person that she could out-talk for the money, I guess. I don't really see her winning though. I don't see her getting Canada's vote over Heather though.
No.
Well, I would think that you would figure that she would have Rochelle's vote. She could potentially have Allison's vote. So that's two already right there in the jury. And probably not Canada, but I mean, she'd only need two more. So if she could convince somebody, you wonder if maybe she could do it.
Yeah, but she gonna get Netta and John? I don't think so. They've been working with Heather like for a long time, so that's two right there, and so you end up having the other votes like cancel out. So yeah.
Okay. Let's go to South Newton 1. Why is Netta taking and getting credit for everything now? It was John's move to get out Heather, but in the diary room, she's taking credit for it. The show seems to be pushing the mastermind edit too much. Kenny, do you feel like is Netta getting too much credit with everybody?
No, yes and no. I mean, I feel like she is playing a great game, and she's actually been a driving force since day one. I've watched the show back. I've read a lot of stuff, and you know what? Nobody just listened to her. When she was even in the stupids with the girls, she was saying, "Get out, Kenny and Andrew, right now," and the girls were being like, "No." So just because people didn't listen to her for the first half doesn't mean that she kind of wasn't playing. So I feel like she is a very intelligent girl, and she has a great shot of winning. But I also feel like John is a very intelligent guy, too. So when you're in the house and things are going your way, I mean, you feel on top of the world, and everything seems like it's your idea, and you're playing the best game ever. So, I mean, Netta may be thinking that she's the only one making kind of strategic moves there, but she's got to remember that there's other people playing their game as well.
Yeah, I think that part of that mastermind edit might be that Netta is sort of like playing up the evil genius in the diary room, whereas John really isn't. John is very, very much coming off more sincere in the diary room. He's talking strategy, but not so much like in a, I don't want to say malicious, but he's not talking about it like in sort of like a mastermind sort of way.
Yeah, well, I mean, like Netta is kind of cackling as she does moves, and like getting pleasure out of it more so, and John's kind of like, needs to be done, sorry. So.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to Zachary Zarnett-Klein, who wants to know, do you think that you'd still be in the house if it wasn't for Canada's HOH? Is that a sore spot, the Canada's HOH?
Yes, it is, actually. Obviously, it was kind of the start of the downfall of the alliance that I helped create, so it was a bit of a thorn in my side, but also as a fan of the game itself and the strategy in the game, I feel like Canada becoming HOH adds a whole other spectrum to the game that we didn't know that we had to play into, so it wasn't something that I could kind of incorporate into my strategy. I mean, when I go into the diary room, I'm being completely open and honest with Canada. I'm going back into the game and I'm playing a game. So they're basically, they're making a decision on our open and honest game versus in a strategic game. They would never know that. So
And
it
then,
was a bit of a thorn, yeah.
then Canada stole your jury vote.
They what?
They stole your jury vote.
Exactly, yeah. I'm supposed to be there.
Yeah, so do you think that in the future that Big Brother Canada players will play the game differently if they know, okay, oh, there could be a Canada's HOH week and Canada gets a jury vote? Do you think that that will change how anybody plays the game going forward?
Absolutely. I mean, you got to put on a face then. You got to be, Canada's player. You got to be likable and lovable, and it almost becomes like a popularity contest versus a game that you're playing strategically, because you kind of have to mishmash both of them together, which I'm not sure if that's the game that I would like to play, but I know that from a viewer standpoint, it's amazing to watch and be able to have a hand in what happens in the game. So it definitely is going to change how people play the game.
Okay, let's go to Real BG Low. Prior to Canada's HOH, what was your endgame plan, and did it include Andrew or a final two with Mumsy, perhaps?
Before Canada was HOH, I did kind of want to bring Andrew to the end because me and Mumsy had many talks about it would be absolutely amazing if it was me and her standing at the end, because we had such a good connection. We were, we just had a really good bond, as I did with Andrew as well. He's a great guy. But judging for the rest of the relationships in the house, I would have took Andrew, because I don't think anyone in the jury would have voted to give Andrew the money at all. So I don't think that I would have took Mumsy when it came down to it, because Andrew would have handed me my first place, basically.
I felt like in the edit, once Andrew was out of the house, I felt like you became a much more sympathetic character in the show than when you guys were in the house, and it was sort of like, oh, these are the two guys running the show. And then once Andrew was gone, I felt like that there was whatever sort of like negative feeling that people had towards Andrew wasn't rubbing off on you anymore. Do you feel like, have you watched the episodes? Did you feel that perception at all in the editing?
A little bit, yeah. Like, I know that they were kind of all vicious and very bitter, and they wanted us gone and stuff like that, but it kind of got to a point after Andrew had left where I just said, enough is enough. Like, this is prior to me coming out to everyone as well. So it was kind of just like, I'm going to shake your hand, Arley. You made a great move. You pulled the wool over my eyes. I'm still here to play the game. I realize that you're totally against me, and I have to rely mostly on my physical and mental abilities during challenges to stay here. And once I kind of have a piece of power, I can play then. So I basically shook your hand, said, good job, you're playing a great game, but I'm not rolling over, I'm not ready to die, so let's at least be cordial with each other while we're here. Like, I don't want this to be weird.
Yeah. Let's go to Edward Giordano. For Kenny, had the first 5 won HOH instead of Canada, who was the next target? My guess was John and Adele to prevent Arley from defecting. So what do you think? If there was no Canada's HOH and you guys stayed in power another week, who was going next?
It probably would have been John. We were talking about if we had one HOH, we were either going to put John and Adele up against each other, John and Arley up against each other, or John and Netta up against each other. I would have voted for John and Netta, just because I know that either of them would use the POV on the other at that point. So I wanted them both to be playing it for themselves. Meanwhile, if we take out, say if John won and took himself off, then we put up Adele on his spot, we'd still be able to get Netta or Adele out, both kind of big players, and vice versa. So I would have put up Netta and John's if we had won.
Boy, that Canada's HOH, even if it was 1 week later, everything would have been different.
Yep, totally. Well, that's the game.
That's Canada. Canada, such big moves. Lance Davis, why was Kenny so hesitant to work with John in the early going? There was a scene in the food pantry, and I think we saw it again on Sunday night, where Kenny was visibly hesitant to John's plea to work together, with Kenny ultimately remarking that John was going home. They showed that again on Sunday night, where John was talking about when he was talking about how he was on the ropes, and he went to go talk to you, and you're like, you're going home.
Well, no, it wasn't that I was hesitant. It's just John lied through his teeth constantly. I mean, like, at that point, he was going around to everyone. Right before Andrew was leaving, he told Andrew that he was going to vote to keep him there. There was no point in telling him that. Like, Andrew was even resigned to the fact that he was pretty much going home. And he went and just gave him false hope for absolutely no reason. There's no jury vote. There's no nothing. It's just almost like an impulsive thing. So, like, when he came up to me, like, the day before, right before I went up on the block and stuff, he had promised and swore he was not going after me. He was 100% on my side. And I wish I was on his side. I wish I had kept that connection strong. But it was just a constant stream of lies coming out of his mouth. So when he's telling me this, I want to go back to day 3 when we were working together, I'm just thinking, you've done nothing but lie to me for the last, 3 days. So when he leaves, I was just like, you're going home. I mean, I'm not falling into your pit of lies again.
Brian, can you tell me why John's nickname is Hundo?
Oh, because that's like something that he says all the time. Hundo, it means like 100% or something like that, right?
Does he say that a lot, Kenny?
He pretty much says it in every single conversation. It's like almost like Paul's "That's insane, dude." That's his tagline.
Yeah. Have you talked with Paul at all since you've been out of the house?
I actually haven't. I haven't spoke to him at all, and not that I wouldn't, or like when I see him at the finale, I'll shake his hand. I hugged him when he left the house. I mean, I have nothing against the man whatsoever. I think he's a very intelligent man who just made some stupid mistakes in the game. So eventually I'll speak to him, but I mean, there's no reason I haven't.
So do you think that when you guys get together next week for the finale, do you think it's going to be tense when everybody gets together, or is it just going to be fun?
I think it's going to be a little bit of both, because, I mean, watching back, you get to see a lot of stuff that people were saying about you behind your back and stuff. And, I mean, Sabrina even now is kind of ripping, like, Mumsy and me to pieces and calling us all these names and calling Sarah the Wicked Witch of Big Brother and stuff. So, I mean, when you're in the house, it means something. When you come out and you watch it back, it kind of, the importance goes down a little bit, so your feelings aren't so hurt. I know I'm not going to have any grudges whatsoever, but I feel like there may be a little tensions here and there.
Okay, so it's gonna be fun.
It's gonna be fun, yeah.
Okay. Brickface wants to know, Kenny, are you happy to go home after being evicted, or would you rather have gone to the jury house?
I mean, there is a small part of me that wished I was in the jury house just so I can have a say in what finally happens in the game. But the same part of me is kind of like, I don't want to give anyone else the money. I want to take the money for myself. So I'm more so happy that I actually got out in time to be with my family and friends for the remaining, few weeks of the show and be able to watch it from a viewer, as versus stressed out as someone who's not in the running to win. So.
And you get to see Molly the dog?
Yes, I did. I got to see Molly when I went to Calgary. She freaked her mind.
Yeah, I bet. Let's go to Pixel Girl 999. True or false? Netta lacks what many of the great Big Brother players possess: loyalty. Big Brother, unlike Survivor, is the kind of game in which you have to demonstrate some loyalty. Dan had Memphis. Will had Boogie. Danielle had Jason, but Netta is trampling her own closest allies. So what do you think? Does Netta lack loyalty?
False. I don't think Netta lacks loyalty. I think she's loyal to a point where she needs to be loyal. I mean, loyalty can only get you so far in the game, because eventually you've got to cut everyone's throat around you. You've got to do something to win the game. And I mean, it's great. And I mean, I tried to play with as much loyalty as I can, and it's great if you get it to the end. It's a possibility to get to the end, being this loyal person. But I mean, it's mostly a game of lying and cheating and strategizing and movement, placing yourself in the game. So she's done that very well, and she stayed loyal to John pretty much this entire time. So I mean, that was her number one, and he's still there with her. So I wouldn't say that she lacks loyalty.
Brian, what do you think about this? Because I kind of feel like that Netta is in a situation where she needs to get rid of John, but she needs to not get her hands dirty to do it. And I don't remember if this was the case or not, but I feel it's like she's almost like Danielle and Jason in Big Brother 3. And in the same way that Danielle was able to figure out a way how to get to the final two with Lisa. Do you feel like that's kind of the way Netta needs to approach this?
I think what Netta lacks is a penis, and if she had one of those, people would be giving her a lot more credit outside and inside the house for her game.
Okay, fair. You heard it here first. All right. No, but seriously, do you feel like that that if she cuts John, do you think that she will win the game, or do you think that people will look at her in a different way?
I mean, if she just straight up cuts him in a hardcore negative way, I don't think. I mean, she'll lose John's vote because he's telling her that he'll give her his vote to Heather. So if she gets rid of him, it's going to have to be like in this one of these. Well, I ain't got nothing to do with it ways, there's only one person voting next week. That's a perfect opportunity for anybody to get rid of John if he doesn't win HOH or veto, and if he doesn't, I think he's gone.
Yeah.
If Netta gets rid of John, do you think he'll be bitter and won't vote for her?
I would like to say no, that he would recognize gameplay, but I've seen John lose a lot of competitions in the house, and I've seen him. He can be a bit of a poor sport sometimes. We nicknamed him PP1 for a reason. When he won the pool party for one in the lacrosse fire challenge, and
right.
He had to go into the pool. When he was standing up on that 6th place podium, I swear to God, his eyes, he could have killed someone if you looked at him long enough. It was pretty vicious. So I feel like it depends. Actually, it depends on how long he's been in the jury house. I think if it's like kind of a final 3 and he gets cut, I feel like he kind of would be bitter. If he has kind of a time to talk to people in the jury house, kind of sort through the initial shock of leaving the game and not winning, I think he'll probably see strategy through it and vote for Netta to win.
Yeah, I feel like this past week or so has been kind of slow in the Big Brother house, but I feel like it's going to be a very exciting final week because you have these two people in Netta and John who have played a really, really great game, but you wonder if they're going to be able to make it to the end with each other and who's going to backstab the other one first. And you have, a couple people that are still in the mix here that could make it interesting in the end. So I think it's going to be a very fun final week.
Totally. I agree with you. And honestly, I kind of hope Sabrina stays along for the ride because she's comedic relief on the show. I got to say, I find myself constantly laughing at pretty much everything she does. So I almost wish she'll stay there just so I have someone to laugh at.
Yeah, she's been good. She's been good.
Yeah,
she's won me over. I wasn't a fan early on, but she's very good.
I wasn't that much of a fan earlier on, and she's won me over since leaving the house. So
yeah. Brian, could you do Sabrina one more time talking about making good TV?
Oh, you want good TV? You want good TV, Rob? I give you good TV.
All right.
That was gold.
Nikki, though, wants to talk about, we as the audience know that Netta doesn't want to take John to the final 2, but does John know that? What do you think? Does John have any suspicion that Netta is not planning to go to the end with him?
No, I don't think he does. I think John honestly thinks that Netta will take him to the final 2. They've been working together since day 2, I think, day 3. And we all knew that, all along the way, we'd be like, we know you're working together, and they'd be like, oh, no, we're not, kind of thing. But John is a very loyal person. He would have been loyal to me if I had solidified the Newfoundland bond between us. I know that he 100% would have stuck with me, probably till the end. So I think that he pretty much has Netta instead of me, and I really do think that he thinks she's going to bring him.
Okay. Alex wants to know, hey, Rob, can you ask Kenny about Frank and Oak ad? Also, Kenny, what is next for you post a BB Can? Oh, Kenny, well, first off, that for the last 3 months nonstop, we've seen your face all over robhasawebsite.com. That Frank and Oak is advertising heavily on robhasawebsite.com over these last few weeks. So thank you very much for being an amazing hood ornament on robhasawebsite.com these last few months.
Oh, not a problem. My pleasure.
Yes, excellent work. What do you have anything big going on that you want to tell us about that's coming up?
I have a few things that I've it's in the talks now. It's in the works. Nothing is 100% definite. I just kind of have the regular modeling thing on the go right now, and a few castings for that, but and a few appearances here and there. But there's a few pretty interesting things that might be popping up pretty soon. So I'll have more on that eventually.
Okay. Very, very, very exciting. So, are you really hoping that when now, do you live in Newfoundland?
No, I live in Montreal right now.
Oh, I was gonna say, if I would be rooting for John to win so that then he could be buying drinks all the time.
I said that to him actually when I left. I was like, if you win, you're buying me some friggin' drinks, buddy. So me and John will 100% be friends after this. So I'm kind of hoping he does win just to capitalize.
Yeah, that's the way to go. So this is from Jonathan Keys, who says, "Hey Kenny, do you think people this season are relying too much on competition threats and hypothetical situations? For weeks, they were talking about, I got to get rid of Rochelle. Rochelle's an endurance competition threat. What do you think about this? Do you think that people are caring too much about the wrong things?"
A little bit. I mean, look at all the underdogs of the season who weren't huge threats in any way, shape, or form. Like Netta, she was not a huge competition threat. Paul wasn't. I mean, Kyle never won anything. Nick never won anything. All of these people were not competition threats whatsoever, but they put so much emphasis on that being so important in the game that they went after them. Now, I mean, it kind of was a great strategy for them because they cleaned out all the people who would probably take competitions in the later half of the game, when it kind of really does matter. But, I mean, earlier on, I don't think so. I think there is kind of way too much emphasis put on it.
How long ago does it feel like you guys were standing there on that ice block when Paul starts wheeling and dealing with everybody? Does that seem like it was like a year ago?
I honestly, it's like 10 years ago. I almost can't even remember. It's like this weird dream almost that I was even in the house. I watched the show, and I even look at myself as a character. I have an actual memory in my head, but I've completely forgotten it because I'm watching it on TV right now, and I'm like into it. So it almost like I wasn't even there.
Yeah, Brian, I know that feels like that was at least 6 months ago for me. How long ago does that feel like for you?
Oh, I mean, a long time ago. But the one thing I hear about that competition now is I keep hearing people saying that there was like an actual time limit on it because Big Brother was scared that y'all might get frostbite or something. Is there anything to that, Kenny?
Well, yeah, it got to a point where it was basically like, okay, guys, we didn't expect you guys to stay up here that long, because when we stepped off the ice blocks, I swear to God, that was one of the most intense pains I've felt on the bottom of my, ever. I was actually, screaming because it hurt so much. But, yeah, it got to a point where basically it was like, okay, guys, we're finishing up. This is getting crazy, so, yeah.
I understand that competition a lot more now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Frank Ashton. Are you surprised that John has gotten to the Final Four without being nominated once? Are you surprised that somebody who has been such a big threat, somebody who's won competitions, how has he been able to stay off the block?
John's a very lovable person. He really is. I mean, he can be a big man baby sometimes, but he's still
Literally, yeah.
When I saw that in the show that he was dressed up as a baby, I cracked because I actually called him a man-child a few times, so it was perfect. But I mean, he is a very endearing person. He's got a great personality. He's very funny. I mean, he didn't do very well in any challenges for the first half of the game. So basically, he relied on his social game for the first half, and he had a great one.
Can we go back to the vote now for this week, where we have now Adele and Sabrina on the block, and we've talked about it from John and Netta's point of view. But Brian, what's Heather's point of view?
She's putting a lot of faith into to Netta, but Netta and Sabrina know that Heather was the target, and they could tell Heather, but Sabrina's telling John and Netta that they're not going to. That's something that could end up coming out before this week's over, and just force Heather to vote Adele out anyway.
Do you guys think that Sabrina is making it to the final three here?
I kind of do, actually.
I do too.
I kind of think she's gonna make it to the final three. I think Netta's gonna win. I do, but I have this sneaking suspicion that something's gonna happen. She's gonna make it to the final three. She's gonna win her first HOH, and then all of a sudden you're gonna see Sabrina in the final two. the Gremlin, like, you know, the original Gremlin is probably going to make it to Final Two for some, you know, mysterious reason.
Yeah, I kind of see it going down that way also. For whatever, like, you know, I feel like she'll be able to win at least part 3 of that final competition. I don't know if she'd be able to win part. She definitely can't win the endurance thing. If she could potentially win the, and then part 2 is like the physical part, so that'd be the problem. I don't think she could win either of the first 2 parts. But you know, maybe something crazy happens and somehow she gets to there. I feel like she could answer the questions. And then that would be pretty interesting to watch her sort of crash the final 2 party.
Yeah, it's going to be like someone get disqualified or something like that, and then it's going to be like Sabrina wins.
I think Netta would take her.
Yeah.
Netta would take her to the final 2. You mean?
Yeah, if she did, if she won like the final HOH and John didn't make it to the final 3, and it was like between her and Heather or something, I believe she would take Sabrina.
I think she probably would.
Yeah.
Maybe.
All right, so in that scenario, John gets totally blindsided. Netta's like, okay, it meets me and you, final 2 all the way. And then she wins HOH, and he's like hugging her. And it's like, yeah, Netta. And she's like, I vote to evict. I'm sorry, I have to evict you, John. Now he's totally blindsided, walks right out of the house. Do you think in that, you know, 15, 20 minutes, however long he has before he casts his vote, and I'm assuming that that's the way they do it, right, Brian? Is it like the Big Brother US finale where the person final 3 goes right outside and has to go vote?
Oh yeah, they did that last season, so I'm assuming they're going to do that this season, right?
Would John turn around, Kenny, and give his vote to Netta after she just totally stabbed it in the back right 20 minutes before?
It's honestly a hard question. I can see him having a really big debate on it because, like I said, he doesn't like losing, and I think he'd be extremely hurt by Netta because he's very much attached to her, and I think he's loyal to her, and I think he'll be extremely hurt and pissed off that she did it. So if he can work through those feelings, if there is a little bit of time space for him to do it, he will vote for her to win. But if it's kind of really immediate and he's a hurting unit, I don't know. I actually, you know what? If it's Sabrina sitting next to her, he'll vote for Netta regardless.
Okay. Could be great drama. Could be great drama along the way.
Totally.
All right. Mike Rubin. Hey, Kenny. Would you have shaven the beard to win the power of veto if you were on the block?
I think it depends on how far in the game I was. Because I'm actually like on a contract where I can't really physically image that much. So I mean, if it was between, you know, me on Final 4, I'd do it in a heartbeat because I'm an ape. My hair grows back pretty fast. I think I'd deal with it. But I think if it was kind of towards the beginning of the game, I don't. Actually, you know what? I'm super competitive. I totally would have done it.
Yeah, could you get a fake beard, or is that be very frowned upon in the beard community?
I think it's probably pretty frowned upon, yeah.
Okay. All right, Real BG Low wants to. In Season 1, geography played a huge hand in how the alliances shook up. Did this influence Kenny's strategy at all in the game, or was it of lesser prevalence for the players in the house this season? Last season, there was so much of the East Coast Alliance and the West Coast Alliance. Did geography play a role at all this season?
It was mentioned a few times, but it was never really followed through with. I mean, when I was going into the house, I thought in my mind, if there's any more Newfoundlanders in there, I'm totally going to hook up with them. It just so happened that you know what, you're trying to put in the first 5 situation where this alliance is offered in front of you. I mean, there's 4 other people asking you to join this alliance kind of thing, so you're not going to say no to them. You're in the house for 10 minutes. You can't piss that many people off. So you say yes. So I had this kind of alliance with John that I wanted to follow through with, but I kind of leaned on the first 5 too much. So it was kind of prevalent in some ways, but not so much. Not as much as the first season anyways.
Okay. This is from Dean Moneycom wants to know, ask Kenny if people outside of Newfoundland can say the N-word in quotes, Noofy. Is that a derogatory term for people to use?
I mean, I know people who think that it is, and I think it all kind of boils down to how it's being used. I mean, there's a lot of stupid Noofy jokes, and there's a lot of kind of negative energy behind that word sometimes. But I mean, most people use it as kind of a shortened, you know, you're a Torontonian, you're a Noofy kind of thing. Like it's more so where you're from than anything. I have absolutely no trouble with it whatsoever, but I know that my father does. Like he thinks that it's a derogatory word. So I think it all depends on how you're using it and the energy behind the word when you say it.
Kelsey in the chat room has a question. How weird was it when Kenny realized he knew Allison? Could you talk about that relationship and tell us that how well you knew Allison?
I trained Allison at a restaurant before. She used to date one of my, like, literally my best friend in the world. I've met her multiple times.
Not Andrew, right?
No, not Andrew. No, no. One of my buddies from back in Newfoundland. When she walked in, I was floored. I didn't really know what to do because I didn't really have that much of a connection with her as of late. So I didn't know if she knew I was gay. So I didn't know if I could trust her. I was very weary of her because I didn't know why she was there. Was she Canada's player? And the fact that I knew her, I was just, I thought I was floored for a few days actually. I was like, I don't know how to proceed with this. Do I out and out ask her? Do I just kind of see where she's lying and how she's playing? It was really weird because I knew John as well. As soon as I walked into the house, I looked at John. I said, I know you. I've played sports against John multiple times growing up. I've played his volleyball team many, many times. So two of these people come in the house. I know two of them, and like on almost a personal level. So I was like, people in the house are going to think something's up, pretty much, because everyone knew that we kind of knew each other. And at first, everyone was kind of like, okay, guys, what's on the go here? All the Newfoundlanders know each other, but at the same time, I'm like, guys, it's Newfoundland. Like, as soon as you meet someone, you're like, you know Bob? You know Bob from Botwood Way? Like, you know people from Newfoundland.
Does production need to worry about this in the future with future Big Brother contestants after this?
Probably. I think it
How do they screen for that?
I don't know. I mean, there is no way. There was no connections to me and John and me and Allison that they could have known about. It was just kind of like this weird coincidence that we were all from central Newfoundland, all within 2 hours of each other. So in that circulation, you're in sports, you kind of all meet each other. She was in the same residence in university as I was, except, well, not the same residence, but the one kind of right next to us. So I don't know. It's weird. It was just very weird.
That is weird. Okay. Zachary Darnett Klein wants to know, what, if anything, would you change about your strategy if you played again?
I would have hid my competitiveness a lot more. I went into the game saying that I was going to fly under the radar. I was just going to be a nice guy, get to know everybody, kind of let them pick each other off and piss each other off kind of thing. But when you're in there and you're kind of presented with this alliance right off the bat, and it's really hard to kind of follow through with certain things that you kind of think you're going to do, because you never know what kind of situation you're going to enter. So I think I would have toned down my competitiveness a little much. My emotion maybe a little bit less as well. But yeah, more so the competitiveness.
Okay, let's take a couple more questions with Kenny. Laurie Friedman wants to know, a question for Kenny. Who do you want to see win the game, and who do you think actually will win? P.S. Huge fan of yours. Congrats on making it into Big Brother. Wish you got further in the game, but proud of you either way. Well, okay, so you told us who you are rooting for, but who do you think will win the game?
It's so, you know what? So, okay, say Adele goes out this week, and it's left with Sabrina, Heather. I think Netta's going to win. I do think Netta's going to win.
Brian, you agree with that?
Of course I agree. I think she's almost got herself into a position where she doesn't have to do anything, and people will take her to the end. I think her biggest competition is John, and all he has to do is win out and get himself there.
So if Netta goes to the final two with anybody other than John, she wins. Is that correct?
I believe so, and I think she's got a good case against John if she gets to make it properly.
Yeah, I agree. If she words it properly, she could probably even still beat John.
Okay, so if it's John and Netta in the finals, who does Canada vote for?
I think John.
I think so too. Then, and then the other 6 people, real quick. Arley, where's he going?
John.
Yeah. And then Allison.
Netta, I think.
Okay. Even though that's her hometown buddy.
Yeah, I think so. Just because, actually, you know what? That's a hard one.
She has been drawing pictures of Netta and saying that she is the queen, though, in Jury House.
Yeah, I feel she recognized that Netta's a very intelligent player, and we knew that we've talked about that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm gonna stick with Netta. I'm gonna stick with Netta.
Okay, so Rochelle does whatever Sabrina does, so Sabrina gets 2 votes. What would Sabrina do, John or Netta?
Sabrina would do.
She said she told John this week that if you didn't nominate me, and I'm gonna vote, you have my vote no matter what.
Yeah, yeah, that doesn't mean anything. Sabrina here, come on now.
Okay.
Sabrina will probably vote for Netta as well, I think.
Okay, so that's 2 votes for Netta. That's huge. What about Adele?
Adele's a definite John vote.
Okay.
Definitely John. Yeah.
And then that would put Heather as the one who's the decider.
And she's gonna go Netta.
Okay. It's going to be a really, really close vote. It's going to be one of the more... John and Netta would be one of the more fun Big Brother Final 2s I think that we ever had.
Yeah, it is going to be very interesting if both of them end up on the block together. I think that's going to be like the biggest climax to the season kind of thing because they've been a pair since day 2. So for them, it's like me and Mumsy if we ended up on the block together kind of thing. So, or sorry, at the Final 2 together. So it would be... very interesting to see.
Could anybody pull a Topaz at the Big Brother Canada finale?
Maybe Adele?
Canada.
Canada could vote the wrong way?
No.
No.
Okay. We'll see. All right. So Keith Dixon wants to know, Kenny, why were you so harsh in your goodbye messages, particularly Kyle and Aika? Those were brutal.
I know. I'm sorry. I actually reached out to Kyle and apologized to him. But I mean, in the house, right before it happened, he called me out. He said a bunch of lies. He said that I called Rochelle a lot of very mean things when I never. He didn't really leave the house in a very nice fashion. So, and he also made a very stupid mistake by out of nowhere. He never had a chance to play in the POV. He never had any power whatsoever, and the back door was, or sorry, the chance to get backdoored was huge, and all of a sudden he goes nuts when Paul goes nuts, and he starts calling out alliances and saying, I'm going after you, Kenny, and you, John, and I'm like, dude, you have no power, and you're literally throwing yourself under the bus here, so that's why I convinced Andrew to that Kyle would be the biggest one to go, so it was kind of very soon after that I said some, some mean messages. Aika, I was still very hurt with what she said or what she did with the letters and stuff. Totally overdramatic on my part. I agree. I will apologize to her many times when I see her, but I know Aika's not going to mind. I mean, she called me a pimple-backed, what was it, woolly mammoth or walrus or... She had some very colorful things to say about me as well. So, I mean...
That's Aika being Aika.
Exactly. They're high, you say things.
Classic Aika.
Yeah, really.
You're the wildebeest.
Yeah, the wildebeest, that's what it was. Pimpleback wildebeest. So, I mean, I kind of regret being so harsh. But in that moment, you kind of mean it. You feel like that's real and that's all you can see because that's your universe. So... I mean, now I'm looking back being like, oh, my God, you're so dramatic. Stop it. But
okay, and then one last question. Alex Wilpon wants to know, Kenny, what did you think of the War Room twist? Now that you got to see what was going on in the War Room, what did you think of that?
I thought that was insane. That blew my mind. I knew that door was a door. They called it Kenny's door, actually, because I was at it every day almost. I was picking at it, like constantly moving things around, but it wasn't in play in the game yet, so it wouldn't open. So now, and I seen afterwards that I was literally just this close into finding it, which would have changed the game 100%. But afterwards, when they came out and they told me that there was a room and that's where 3 people were, my mind was blown. I did not see that coming whatsoever.
Could you hear anything coming from in there when they were there?
Not a thing. They told me to get away from the door once, and I was like, I just thought I was getting close to something, so I was like, oh, I'm going to come back to this, but I never heard a thing, no.
All right. Big Brother Canada finale next Thursday night, just 9 days from now. It's going to be a very fun week. Kenny, we look forward to hearing plenty of stories from finale night.
Oh, there's going to be a lot, I think.
Yeah. Brian, are you pumped up for the finale?
Of course. I mean, just if it's half as good as last year's finale, I'll be very happy.
Are you planning a Big Brother Canada finale party like you had a Big Brother Canada premiere party?
No. I need to be sober, I think. More sober than I was for that.
All right. Well, so we will be back on Friday to talk about more Big Brother Canada after this week's eviction and talk about the final 4 HOH and sort of kick off your finale week on Friday. Kenny, thank you so much for coming on with us. I appreciate it.
Oh, Rob, it's great to be here. Thank you very much.
All right, and if you want to follow Kenny on Twitter, you're Team Kenny Brain, is that right?
That is correct, yep.
All right, at Team Kenny Brain, if you want to follow Kenny on Twitter. Join us tomorrow for Survivor Know-It-Alls at 9:15 p.m. Eastern. So we're going to be live after this week's episode of Survivor, and then on Thursday I'll talk to the next person kicked off of Survivor, and Tyson Apostle on a marathon RHAP on Thursday. Very much looking forward to that. Have a great night, everybody, and we'll talk to you again soon. Also, by the way, if you're interested in the movie Mean Girls, that we are having a special podcast on post-show recaps tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, and that is going to be hosted by Zach Brooks and Taylor Cotter at postshowrecaps.com. Have a great night, everybody. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye.